Hey, welcome back. Adam here. This week is week 3, if I remember correctly, and we are getting into visual aids, delivery techniques, and audience engagement. So far, if just to recap, we've talked about like what is the process that you should follow to put together any speech. We've talked specifically about the training demo, like what it's for and ways to use it. And then today we get into kind of the nitty gritty of like, all right, like now that we have the basics, what are some sort of advanced like visual aids? Like what are best practices for visual aids? Like what are, a couple different delivery techniques that I can use? How do I engage with my audience? And so these are all things that we're going to talk about. So get excited. So just as a review, does anybody remember what the 4 components of a demo plan are? Let's see if I can do this. I think they are prepare, show, do. I just heard you say it along with me. And review. That's the one. Yeah. All right, cool. And then what's the purpose of objectives? They help you in your audience. Did they help you in your audience? Of course they do. So the purpose of objectives, again, is just to sort of structure your speech to help us determine what we actually want to accomplish with the audience, and then to be able to evaluate if we did that or not. Some of the no-no verbs, if I remember correctly, are learn, and I don't really remember the other 2 because I forgot them because they're no-nos. Anyway, all right, so objectives. Here are the things that we're going to do today. By the end of this presentation, you will be able to identify and incorporate several methods of engaging and interacting with your audience. So we're going to talk about audience engagement. We're going to talk about the appropriate way to do visuals, like what makes for good visuals and some tips to do that. You can kind of think of today as like a compendium of tips on a number of topics. So we're going to talk about your vocal expression, how to manage that, physical presence on the front of the stage. We're going to talk about ways to engage the audience, like some activities that you can do. And then if we have time, we'll talk about the upcoming PowerPoint assignment. So product part of the presentation. This is sort of like the latter part. So this is a thing that I always enjoyed doing in class. Like, what is a way to bomb your presentation? And you would like turn and think and share with your buddy what your deepest fears are. And we get a lot of just choking, like totally forgetting the words, or having some kind of technical difficulty in which you can't get your PowerPoint to load. And so, all right, and then starting from that point, we think, okay, these are people's deep-seated fears. Let's talk about how to avoid them. So first thing that we're going to talk about is credibility and respect, okay? And so this is whenever we get into visual things. So voice. This is one way that we establish credibility and respect, right? So the words that people choose, you sometimes judge the message and its veracity by the messenger, okay? And so you need to have that in mind whenever you're doing your talk. And so thinking about words like fixing and getting y'all and fillers and stuff, like sometimes when people hear those, they want to deduct IQ points. So while we don't want you to fixate on your diction, we do want you to recognize that whenever you're giving a presentation, the level of professionalism should be elevated a little bit because it is more of a formal thing than just like talking in the hallway. Whenever you think about pitch, don't be too monotone. Like, don't be afraid to be enthusiastic and to go up and down and to vary, that's what I'm trying to say. Just vary your tone. Because sometimes people settle into, I'm just going to read from the PowerPoint voice, and then it just becomes very boring for everyone. So, and again, we'll talk about pace a little bit. So, when I say slow down for clarity, so sometimes, there are parts of your speech that you can sort of speed through because you just kind of got to cover it, and maybe not speed through, but move through. But when you get to a point that you really want to emphasize, and I'm kind of doing it right now, you want to slow down for effect and to allow, the message to sort of seep into people's heads. So when when you're writing your speech and when you're thinking through it, sort of identify the moments at which you really want people to comprehend, and then maybe highlight those or something and say this is the place where I need to slow down for effect so that people can get it. Don't forget to pronounce your words, and don't forget to breathe. This is the thing that I forget to do. Take breaths. Sometimes it's almost exhausting for people in the audience to watch you run 90 mile an hour. So the more conversational, the more at ease you are, the better your presentation will be. And of course, that's a hard thing to achieve early on, whenever you're first getting up, especially if you're nervous. But just know that it's a thing that you should strive for. Okay, so voice continued. So wait time, it gives your audience time to think and use the like 1 second to pause, okay? And so sometimes like if you're asking a question or if you're delivering kind of a more complex, concept, like it's totally okay to stop and like wait for it to sink in, kind of like I was saying there just a minute ago. Don't think that you have to fill every bit of space with words, okay? Because that's bad. That's not how we communicate. Like when you think about how you talk to your friends, like do you just come up to them and you're like, I have so much to tell you about today, blah, 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 blah. So anyhow, volume, do an audience check. Don't turn your back, okay? And so what I mean by that is, you can ask, can you hear me in the back, which is also a clever way of saying shut up. And then don't turn and address your PowerPoint. This is the thing that I hear people write in their reflections all the time. They're like, my God, I had to watch my back while I looked at my PowerPoint and read off of it. So don't do that because A, we can't hear you, and B, we didn't come to look at your back. So make sure that people can hear you is all I'm saying. Again, silence, it's totally okay to pause and collect your thoughts. If you run long, more than like 10 seconds, it can get kind of awkward. But just know that however long the pause is, it seems a lot longer to you than it does to everybody else. So it's totally okay to pause and sort of collect your thoughts, shuffle through your notes. One of the reasons that we have you do the train and demo first is that if you lose your place in terms of what you're thinking, you're just moving through the steps like assembling the catapult or counting the rings on the tree or, assembling the place setting or whatever. And so you can just kind of narrate what you're doing, and that helps people not get hung up. So anyhow, eye contact, let's talk about this. This is expected in American culture. Like we tend to think like if people don't look at you, then they're shifty. Like if they kind of look side to side or if they won't look at like maybe they're lying. Like why is that kid looking at his feet? Well, clearly he just threw a rock at Jimmy or something, okay? It's also a powerful way to retain interest, okay? So like if you're looking at people, they're going to think, my God, he's looking at me. I better look back at him, okay? And then it tends to encourage audience feedback, right? So like what if you pose a question and you're like, all right, so what do we think of GMOs? And then you stare at the floor. People think, gosh, like, does he really want my answer or is he afraid of it? But if you, pose a question and then look at them, and this seems really self-evident, but if you do, then you're more likely to get feedback, okay? And then I especially do this in like my big lectures, right? Like, because people want to hide in the crowd, like they don't want to answer, but if you just stare at them, they'll answer. It's great. You should try it sometime. And so it can also like, people make eye contact with you. It's like, oh, that guy's a human. And then it can put them at ease a little bit. So if you're looking for like, for those of you who like need like explicit instructions, 3 to 5 seconds per person, one of the questions on the quiz that people get wrong is what is an acceptable length of time to maintain eye contact? And one of the options is 45 seconds. And last semester, I think probably a third of the class put 45 seconds. And just to demonstrate to them how wrong they were, I had them turn to a buddy and maintain eye contact for 45 seconds. It was really awkward for everyone. By the way, if you maintain eye contact for 4 minutes, you'll fall in love. This is scientifically proven. So don't just, be careful out there. All right, so that was eye contact. So physical presence. Let's come back to this in the next video because I want to have this YouTube video queued up, so don't go anywhere.